This is part one from Nectar in a Sieve by Kamala Markandeya. Today we'll be reading pages 163 to 170. Nectar in a Sieve, published in 1954, is the first novel by Indian author Kamala Markandeya. Written in first person, it tells the story of Rukmani, a woman from a small rural village in southern India, from the time when she is married until her husband's death many years later. It explores changes to traditional ways of life in the first half of the 20th century in India. In this excerpt from the novel, Rukmani returns from the village where she and her husband Nathan have made a home. They have come to pay a visit to her dying mother. While in her parents' house, Rukmani encounters Kennington, a white doctor whose influence creates some of the many changes to Rukmani's life that the novel chronicles. "Do not worry," they said. "You will be putting lines in your face." They still say it, but the lines are already there, and they are silent about that. Kali said it, and I knew she was thinking of her own brood. Kunti said it, and in her eyes lay the knowledge of her own children. Janaki said, morosely, she wished it could happen to her. A child each year was no fun. Only Nathan did not say it to me, for he was worried too, and knew better. We did not talk about it. It was always with us. A chill fear that Ira was to be our only child. My mother, whenever I paid her a visit, would make me accompany her to a temple, and together we would pray and pray before the deity, imploring for help until we were giddy. But the gods have other things to do. They cannot attend to the pleas of every supplicant who dares to raise his cares to heaven. And so the years rolled by, and we still had only one child, and that a daughter. When Ira was nearing 6, my mother was afflicted with consumption and was soon so feeble that she could not rise from bed. Yet in the midst of her pain, she could still think of me, and one day she beckoned me near and placed in my hand a small stone lingam, symbol of fertility. "Wear it," she said. "You will yet bear many sons. I see them, and what the dying see will come to pass. Be assured this is no illusion." "Rest easy," I said. "You will recover." She did not. No one expected she would, but she lingered for a long time. In her last months, my father sent for the new doctor who had settled in the village. Nobody knew where he came from or who paid him, but there he was, and people spoke well of him, though he was a foreigner. As for my father, he would have called in the devil himself to spare my mother any suffering. So it was in a house of sorrow that I first met Kennington, whom people called Kenny. He was tall and gaunt, with a pale skin and sunken eyes the color of a kingfisher's wing, neither blue nor green. I had never seen a white man so close before, and so I looked my fill. "When you have done your staring," he said coldly, "perhaps you will take me to your mother." I started, for I had not realized I was goggling at him. Startled, too, that he should have spoken in our tongue. "I will show you," I said, stumbling in my confusion. My mother knew no man could save her, and she did not expect miracles. Between her and this man, young though he was, lay mutual understanding and respect, one for the other. He told her no lies, and she trusted him. He came often, sometimes even when he was not summoned, and his presence, as much as the powders and pills he made her take, gave my mother her ease. When she died, it was in the same way, without a struggle, so that although we grieved for her, our hearts were not torn by her suffering. Before I left my village, I told him that for what he had done, there could be no repayment. "Remember only," I said, "that my home is yours, and all in it." He thanked me gravely, and as I turned to go, he raised a hand to stop me. "There is a look about you," he said. "It lies in your eyes, and the mark is on your face. What is it?" "Would you not grieve too," I said, "if the woman who gave you birth was no more than a handful of dust?" "It is not that alone. The hurt is of longer standing. Why do you lie?" I looked up, and his eyes were on me. Surely, I thought, my mother has told him, for he knows. But as if he guessed my thoughts, he shook his head. "No, I do not know. Tell me." I held back. He was a foreigner, and although I no longer stood in awe of him, still the secret had been long locked up in my breast and would not come out easily. "I have no sons," I said at last, heavily. "Only one child, a girl." Once I had started, the words flowed. I could not stop myself. Why should it be? I cried. What have we done that we must be punished? Am I not clean and healthy? Have I not borne a girl so fair people turn to gaze when she passes? That does not seem to help you much, he said shortly. I waited. If he wishes to help me, he can, I thought. So much faith had I in him. My heart was thumping out a prayer. Come and see me, he said at last. It is possible I may be able to do something. Remember, I do not promise. My fears came crowding upon me again. I had never been to this kind of doctor. He suddenly became terrifying. You are an ignorant fool, he said roughly. I will not harm you. I slunk away, frightened of I know not what. I placed even more faith in the charm my mother had given me, wearing it constantly between my breasts. Nothing happened. At last, I went again to him, begging him to do what he could. He did not even remind me of the past. Ira was 7 when my first son was born, and she took a great interest in the newcomer. Poor child, it must have been lonely for her all those years. Kali's and Janaki's children were much older, and as for Kunti, she preferred to keep aloof. Her son was a sturdy youngster and would have been a good playmate for my child. But as the years went by, her visits to our house grew less and less frequent until at last we were meeting as strangers. My husband was overjoyed at the arrival of a son. Not less so my father. He came, an old man, all those miles, by cart from our village, to hold his grandson. Your mother would have been glad, he said. She was always praying for you. She knew, I told him. She said I would have many sons. As for Nathan, nothing would do but that the whole village should know, as if they didn't already. On the 10th day from the birth, he invited everybody to feast and rejoice with us in our good fortune. Kali and Janaki both came to help me prepare the food, and even Kunti's reserve crumbled a little as she held up my son to show him to our visitors. Between us, we prepared mounds of rice, tinting it with saffron and frying it in butter, made hot curries from chilies and dal, mixed sweet, spicy dishes of jaggery and fruit, broiled fish, roasted nuts over the fire, filled 10 gourds with coconut milk, and cut plantain leaves on which to serve the food. When all was ready, we spread the leaves under the gaudy marriage pandal Nathan had borrowed for the occasion and ate and drank for long, merry hours. Afterwards, Kunti was persuaded to play for us on her bauble tara, which she did skillfully, plucking at the strings on her slender fingers and singing in a low, clear voice which people strained to hear, so that it was very quiet. The baby, who had slept through all the clamor, woke up now in the sudden hush and began squalling. Kunti stopped her thrumming. People crowded around me, trying to pat the baby who had caused all this excitement, although he was no beauty, with puckered face and mouth open wide to emit shriek after shriek. Such a furore, Kali said. One would think the child had wings at the very least. 7 years we have waited, said Nathan, his eyes glinting, wings or no wings. The one person I had wanted most to see at our feast was not there. I had gone to seek him, but he was not to be found. He goes and comes, they told me. Nobody knows where or why. So I had to be content without him. But contentment cannot be forced, and Nathan noticed my preoccupation. What now? He said. Are you not happy? Would you have the moon too, as Kali would have wings? Indeed, no, I said. It is just that I would have liked to see Kenny under our roof. He did so much for my mother, and for us, I thought, but could not say it. For at the beginning, I had not wished my husband to know that I was putting myself in the hands of a foreigner, for I knew not what his reaction would be. I had consoled myself that it would be time enough to tell him if a child was born, and now I found I could not do it, because he would surely ask why I had not told him before. What harm, I thought, if he does not know? I have not lied to him. There has just been this silence. In our sort of family, it is well to be the firstborn. What resources there are have later to be shared out in smaller and smaller portions. Ira had been fed well on milk and butter rice, Arjun too, for he was the first boy. But for those who came after, there was less and less. 4 more sons I bore in as many years, Thambi, Murugan, Raja, and Selvam. It was as if all the pent-up desires of my childless days were now bearing fruit. I was very fortunate, for they were, without exception, healthy, And in their infancy and childhood, my daughter looked after them almost as much as I did. She was a great one for babies, handling them better than many a grown woman, while she was still a child. How quickly children grow. They are infants. You look away a minute, and in that time, they have left their babyhood behind. Our little girl ran about in the sun, bare and beautiful as she grew, with no clothes to hamper her limbs or confine her movements. Then one day when she was 5, long before Arjun was born, Nathan pointed her out to me as she played in the fields. "Cover her," he said. "It is time." I wanted to cry out that she was a baby still, but of course Nathan was right. She had left infancy forever. And so I made a skirt for her, weaving bright colors into the white cotton that she might like it. And so she did for a time, wearing it gladly, twirling it about her as she spun round and round. But when the novelty had worn off, she became fractious and wanted to tear it from her. It was nearly a month before she resigned herself to it. With 6 children to feed, we could no longer afford to eat all the vegetables we grew. Once a week, I would cut and pack our garden produce, selecting the best and leaving the spoiled or bruised vegetables for ourselves, cover the basket with leaves, and set off for the village. Old Granny was always glad to buy from me, and at first I would make straight for the corner of the street where she sat with gunny sacks spread before her. The old lady would pick out the purple brinjals and yellow pumpkins, the shiny green and red chilies, feeling them with wrinkled fingers and complimenting me on their size. "None like yours," she would say. "Such color, such a bloom on them." Perhaps she said it to everyone who came to her, but I would feel absurdly pleased and go away with my inside smiling. Then one day, Biswas, the moneylender, stopped me in the street. I would have passed after a brief salutation, for among us there is a dislike of the money-lending class, but he stood squarely in the path. "Ah, Rukmani," he said, "in a hurry as usual, I see." "My children are not of age to be left alone for long," said I, speaking civilly. "Yet surely you have time for a little business with me." "If you will tell me what business." "Buying and selling," he said, cackling. "Which is your business, as lending is mine?" "If you will make yourself clear," I said, "I will stay in here. Otherwise, I must be on my way." "Those vegetables," he said, "that old Granny buys from you. What price does she pay you?" "A fair price," I said, "and no haggling. I will pay you 4 annas a dozen for brinjals and 6 annas each for pumpkins, if they are large." He was offering almost double what old Granny paid. I went away. The following week, I sold almost my whole basket to him, keeping only a little for old Granny. I did not like selling to him, although he paid me a better price. It was business and nothing else with him. Never a word of chaff or a smile, or perhaps it was the flattery I missed, and I would much rather have had it the other way. But there you are. You cannot choose. To my surprise, old Granny made no comment, beyond smiling reassuringly when I muttered guiltily that our needs at home were growing. In the beginning, she may not have known, but when I sold her, week after week, 1 small pumpkin or half a dozen brinjals, she must have guessed the truth. But she said nothing, nor did I, for we both knew she could not afford to pay me more, and I could not afford to sell for less. As it was, we were going short of many things. We no longer had milk in the house, except for the youngest child. Curds and butter were beyond our means, except on rare occasions. But we never went hungry, as some of the families were doing. We grew our own plantains and coconuts. The harvests were good, and there was always food in the house, at least a bag full of rice, a little dal, if no more. Then, when the rice terraces were drained, there was the fish spawned among the paddy, and what we could not eat we dried and salted away. And every month I put away a rupee or 2 against the time Ira would be married, so we still could not grumble.